Hello, welcome to the ATC Double Cut. I'm Micah Woods, and we're going to talk about some of the interesting topics on the ATC blog today. I'm excited to announce that today I've got a special guest joining me for the ATC Double Cut to talk about this topic. Please welcome Christopher Chase, the golf course superintendent at Clearwater Bay Golf and Country Club in Hong Kong.
Thanks, Micah. It's a pleasure to be here. I miss the old days back when we were together at the Hong Kong Golf Club doing turf trials and things like that. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. When did you go to Hong Kong? Was it 07, 08?
Yep, I started at Hong Kong Golf Club in 2008, and yeah, I've been in Hong Kong ever since. A few different jobs along the way, but yeah, I've been based in Hong Kong for 14 years now.
Yeah, that's been a nice run. And if anybody doesn't already follow Chris on Twitter, he's got his Twitter account is at HK Chase. And I highly recommend him as a follow because he posts some wonderful information and some spectacular photos. Clearwater Bay has to be one of the most photogenic golf courses in the world, wouldn't you say? And you get to work there every day, and you take some amazing photos.
Yeah, Micah. There's no doubt about that. It's honestly one of the most beautiful golf properties I've been to and worked on. And yeah, it's not easy, or it's not hard to post pictures every day on Twitter, beautiful shots of the course. And people ask me, does it ever get old? And honestly, it doesn't. It's just an absolute beautiful place to work.
Yeah, and you've got zoysia grass there through the green, and then tiff eagle on the green, and those little platinum paspalum collars. So you've got I guess those are the three major warm season turf grasses for high end golf courses would be zoysia, ultra dwarf Bermuda grass, and seashore paspalum.
Yeah, Mike. I think we're one of the few courses I know of that has all three kind of major warm season grass species on the property. So it's fun to me. It's a unique challenge, but it's fun. I get to manage all three of them.
Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate you joining me because you, with your 14 years experience working in the region, you've also worked in China, in Vietnam, when you were working with Whitgang, which is really the premier distributor in that part of the world of fertilizers, plant protectant products. Were you doing grass sales too through like Atlas Turf Agent at all? Did Whitgang do that when you were there?
Yeah. We helped with that too. So Whitgang is a long-standing company, been in Asia for I think 25 years, and chemical sales, fertilizer sales. We do construction-related products for bunkers, and then a big part of my job during my 5 years there was importing different grass species into Vietnam, into China, into Hong Kong. We did Bermudas, we did Platinum Paspalum, Celebration Bermuda, Tiff Eagle, all sorts of grasses. So I was heavily involved in a lot of the construction projects throughout Vietnam, China, and even a little bit in Hong Kong, renovations.
That is, you are the perfect guest for this show, for what I want to talk about. Now, I don't know how much you've read my blog. I'm going to bring up the blog post that I want to get started talking about today. This one is a post that I call Of Trees, Turf, and Tropical Tournament Golf. And thinking of that title, you also have quite a bit of experience with tournaments. You have, when you were at Hong Kong Golf Club, you were the host of the Hong Kong Open, and then you've also been at Clearwater Bay. You've hosted one of the PGA Tour China events. So you've got lots of experience with turf. You've got lots of experience working in the tropics, and you've got lots of experience with tournament golf. So I want to see if you agree with me about some of these things that I've written.
Okay.
I don't know do you ever read my blog?
I do, Micah. Yeah, I read them. I've watched some of your videos on YouTube, and I go to your website. So I'm not sure I've read them all, but I've read quite a few of them.
Okay. Well, cool. This one I wrote originally in, I think 2014 or something, around the time of the Philippine Open. It's it starts off with a tweet from a Japanese professional player, Yoshinobu Tsukada, and he shows the eighth hole at Whack Whack Golf and Country Club's East Course, and the Google translation for this says exciting specialty number 8 par 3. It's hell if you don't get on the green. And this is like a volcano hole. And what you can see in the image that he shared is from the tee, you're looking out through a corridor of trees, and then you look out to this volcano green that is elevated up around the surrounding bunkers. That's also surrounded by some pretty big trees. This was from 2014. So I did this post originally in 2014, and I thought it was interesting, especially because of the grasses that are at Whack Whack. And the grasses at Whack Whack are Zoysia matrella on the putting greens, a fine-bladed Zoysia matrella that can tolerate low mowing heights. And the rest of the course, actually, no, the tees are not carpet grass, but the fairways and rough are tropical carpet grass, Ixonopus compressus. And I think that if you are in a tropical environment and you've got a lot of trees, those are the grasses that work, because there is the cloud shade that I think not everybody thinks of tropical environments as being cloudy. They might think of Honolulu, which is a pretty sunny place, or Miami, which is a pretty sunny place. But when you get in Southeast Asia, there are long times during the year when the temperatures are very high, but it's very cloudy. So if you combine that shade that comes from the clouds, which restricts the amount of photosynthetically available light that the grass can use, and you add on the tree shade, there are big struggles with Bermuda grass and slightly less severe struggles with seashore paspalum. And then you get to carpet grass and zoysia, and they have the fewest struggles in terms of dealing with that shade. Do you have any comments about that?
No, I mean that's yeah, I agree with what you're saying. It's absolutely, especially in Hong Kong here, one of the biggest, I guess, issues we have or restrictions would be sunlight. We do get a lot of cloudy days, a lot of fog, even at Clearwater Bay, things like that. So it's um, we don't quite have the tree shade like that photo, but yeah, a big challenge is managing in Asia, especially is managing grass in low light conditions. So, and generally speaking, yeah, you're spot on. I mean, zoysia, carpet grass do very well in the low light. Bermuda obviously needs a little bit more. You know?
And at Hong Kong Golf Club, you had the um, carpet grass in the rough on a lot of those courses.
Yeah, the old course at Hong Kong Golf Club is all carpet grass in the rough. That's correct. Yep.
And if I remember right, the Deepwater Bay 9-hole course down on the island is that carpet grass fairways also?
It is. It is. Although I believe they're converting right now, slowly converting over to more zoysia. That's what I believe. So yeah.
Okay.
The
And
carp, the carp, as you know, but the carpet grass does very well, in the low light. As far as playability and aesthetics, that's maybe another issue. Some people, are a bit turned off by the wide leaf blade and other issues, but it certainly does. I've seen carpet grass grow almost in no sunlight, right under trees and things like that. So it's good for that purpose.
yeah, it is. It grows right under the trees in surprising amounts of shade. And I sometimes take pictures in of these like forests that have a pretty good stand of carpet grass growing under them. So I understand that people may not like the wide leaf blade, but it's really the only grass that can grow in some of these places. So if you're going to have that amount of shade, you really want to. Um, I mean, if you want grass, it's probably carpet grass that you're going to have, and that's when you get into a place like Bangkok. And I've said this many times. must have some blog posts about this too. If you go to the parks, which are a little bit lower maintenance than golf courses, if you go to the parks and look at lawns in the parks in a purely tropical place like Bangkok, what you'll see is under the drip lines of the trees, you go from the trunk of the tree and you walk out to the drip line to the edge of the uh, canopy of the branches and leaves. That will be 100% tropical carpet grass. And then as you get outside the tree canopy and get into areas where the sun can pass straight down without passing through a tree, that's where you'll start to see zoysia growing. And in in America, I understand that zoysia is thought of as a type of grass that you'd plant in the shaded areas. So the zoysia is not a grass really that you think of as a sunny area grass. It's more thought of as a shade area grass.
Micah,
In
can
a
you still can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I lost your volume, I believe.
Oh my. Can you hear me? I'm here. Chris, can you
Hello,
hear me? Hello, hello. My, we may just have to stop this and try again.
hello, Micah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Chris, we can start over. Oh, I what we may do. Chris could
Hey, can you hear me now?
yes, I've yes, I've always been able to hear you, Chris. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I got another call and it bumped me off. So sorry about that.
Oh my.
I
You
hope
are
that doesn't happen
very you are busy.
again.
Yeah, sorry sorry about that. Well, I was almost thinking we would just end this and start over, but it's not going to be necessary to do that. We can just continue with our discussion.
Okay, great. Great.
So I was talking about the parks in Bangkok and how it's zoysia that grows in the sunny areas and carpet grass that grows under the trees. And that's it's distinctively different from how zoysia might be used in the American Southeast, where you might use Bermuda grass in the sunnier areas, and zoysia grass would be a grass that is thought of as really ideal for shade. But there's actually so much shade in places like Hong Kong, Bangkok, and Manila that uh, if you put try to grow zoysia under a tree, it will thin out and it it thins out to the degree that it gets invaded by carpet grass, and carpet grass eventually will choke out the zoysia.
Yep, that's
So
right.
I I did this blog post and I was trying to explain why those grasses are used because it is a desirable feature, I think, in a tropical climate to have trees. It's nice to have big trees. I showed a picture of caddies during the dry season at Bangsai Country Club just north of Bangkok, and the caddies have umbrellas that they're using on a clear day, and those umbrellas are used for the purpose of providing shade. It is so hot, the sun is so bright that it is common to use umbrellas for shade during the sunny weather. If there were big trees around that green that were throwing shade, perhaps those umbrellas would not be required. And I think it's nice to think about a wide open golf course. And in Hong Kong, it gets cold enough in the winter, and you've got a spring and autumn where the temperatures are mild. But in Thailand, the average high temperature is always over 30 degrees Celsius. It's always hot. And if you get a golf course that doesn't have tree shade, the average golfers tend to note that. So on a new golf course that has very small trees that don't throw shade, if I talk to those the people running that golf course and ask them what is the golfer feedback about your new golf course, one of the predictable responses will be they mention that there's not enough trees. Have you have you seen anything like that? Even and what did you see when you were working with Wit Gang and were a bit involved with some of those construction projects?
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Mike. I mean, there's certainly value to trees on a golf course. As a superintendent, it kind of pains me to say it because we like to grow grass and trees don't always help to that end. But yeah, most owners, most stakeholders, I mean, they do want trees. They provide shade, as you said. There's certainly some aesthetic value to them and things like that. So you know, I certainly understand the desire and the need for trees in certain areas. Um,
And I think I think it may be even more um, important or comfortable to have trees the closer one gets to the equator, because I think I've played golf in Hong Kong when there's been some pretty lovely weather in the November, December, um, maybe I think we played in I can't remember when we went and played Cal Sai Chow, but I remember I was wearing a windbreaker. I've looked at those pictures. It was chilly. It was after the winter because that Seashore Paspalum was really heavily pockmarked with dollar spot damage that had happened over the winter. And I looked at those pictures and I was wearing a long sleeved windbreaker and it was chilly. So in Hong Kong, you can get the kind of weather where you don't need the cooling effect of shade. But if I'm in Bangkok or Manila or Ho Chi Minh City or Kuala Lumpur or Singapore, I think it it can be daunting to be in a clubhouse looking out on an 18-hole property that doesn't have big trees throwing shade and think I'm going to go walk through the hot sun now and the hot sun and humidity for 4 hours. Um, be, Especially because people are accustomed to being somewhere with if I'm indoors now, I don't have air conditioning, but I have a fan blowing on me. And people are accustomed to have air conditioning or fans all the time, and I also have shade. I don't have the bright sun shining on me right now, so I I didn't think this 20 years ago. I would have said, well, who cares about trees? This is about golf. This is about the grass. But I've heard it enough times from golf course architects, players, people who own golf courses in this part of the world or members at these types of clubs. And I've played enough of these places to where I appreciate going and playing golf among rain trees and other types of big trees that cast a tremendous amount of shade.
yeah, no, I certainly understand what you're saying, Mike. I think that's also on the same thought pattern. It's why you see more night golf the further or closer to the equator you get. You get down into southern Vietnam and areas like that. You see the lights, and it just people don't want to be out there during the midday heat. Um,
That
and
that is a
if you never played in the tropics of Asia, it does. It's a different kind of a heat. So I fully understand what you're saying with the shade and anything you can do to stay a little bit cooler um, and more comfortable. Certainly a benefit.
and that is a great point. I know in Bangkok the night golf is the pricing for that it's a premium price. Now, of course, you've got all the electricity going on, so it makes sense that you would be charging more because you have to have the electricity for the lights. But people happily pay that premium, and I know some of the busy courses it's difficult to get a tee time for night golf because that really is the ideal time to play because people feel it's much more comfortable without the hot sun blazing down on them. So it so I guess the point of that in terms of how this relates to my blog post and to grass is that there are particular challenges when you have members or owners or clubs that have big trees and they like those trees, and you've got all the cloudy weather in the tropics that makes the weather unsuitable for uh, Bermuda grass, for example, all through the course. And that's why in a place like Whack Whack, they're using tropical carpet grass and Zoysia matrella on the greens, and that just works fine. And what else did I say? I'm gonna put a direct link to this. If anybody wants to go read this post themselves and see the photos on their own device, I'll put a direct link to this in the show notes. And I mentioned that these grasses can tolerate low mowing, which is less than 5 millimeters under appreciable tree shade in a tropical climate. These grasses, five, let's see, 5 millimeters is a bit under. That's something like zero point 0.2 inches or below. And I mentioned that if one wants to have grass and have trees, then these are the grasses that work. They require minimal inputs, can be mown as short as one likes, and they can be maintained to the highest level for international tournaments. So I mentioned that because this was the Philippine Open, which had it was an international tournament, and I know in the past there have been tournaments at Whack Whack at the old Royal Selangor Golf Club when they would have had carpet grass in the fairways, and I know a lot of courses changed to Bermuda grass and Seashore Paspalum and Zoysia, but now some courses are going back to put Zoysia on the greens also. So I showed also some country courses in Thailand. I showed one that is the Kat Udom Sak golf course in Chumpon, Thailand, and that course has carpet grass fairways and Zoysia grass greens. That's an army golf course in Thailand. And I showed one farther down the peninsula in Krabi, the Pakasai Country Club in Krabi, Thailand. This one also has carpet grass around the greens. It's got Zoysia matrella, Cori Zoysia on the greens, and that is something where you can have big trees, you can have 100% grass cover. It's good all year round, and anybody can maintain it. And then if I always argue that if you take these very basic courses with very simple maintenance, and if you would take, for example, the type of resources that you have at at Clearwater Bay, and if you take your skills and your staffing numbers and your machines and growth regulators and light and frequent fertilizer applications and stuff, just imagine what you could do with these grasses that are absolutely impossible to kill, basically, in this type of environment. So I argue for that, not for everywhere, but I like to point out that these grasses work well, and a lot of people have fun playing golf on them. So,
Yeah, no, Mike, it's yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and it's every site though I think it's unique, and it's it's what grasses work some places may not work others, and it's a complicated I guess a complicated question. You'd think there'd be more consensus on this by now, but it's there's so many factors to take into consideration with water quality and like you said budgets and trees, and there's so many factors to consider when selecting the grass. So it's even now after 14 years, I don't really claim to have the answers as to which grasses work best. It all depends. I mean, I guess it all just depends on the specific environment. Even within Hong Kong, I'm Clearwater Bay. We are right on the ocean. We get very few trees, but we get a breeze. But then take Hong Kong Golf Club. You've been to both, and there's huge, huge paper bark trees. Huge. I mean, it's two completely different environments. Only 15 kilometers apart. So.
and they are they still using that Fanling 27 variety of Bermuda?
Yeah, yeah, they have not. They've not switched. They did when I was there. Actually, we did test out Tiff Eagle on 4 greens, and that's doing pretty well also. But yeah, it's still kind of the local Bermuda.
So if they
Right.
have to do any patching work or rebuild a green or something, they'll use from their own nursery and use the
Yeah,
Famling
that's correct.
27.
Yep. Yep. Mhm.
No, you've done a couple PGA Tour China events. How many have you done?
I just did one actually, 2018. And then unfortunately, COVID hit after that and kind of
That
shut
that
down the. Yeah.
that's right. So do you and I I think that Ultra Dwarf Bermuda grass provides the premier putting surface in for warm season grasses in terms of how the ball rolls smoothly with a minimum amount of work. So you can get really nice seashore paspalum greens, but to get them to roll like Ultra Dwarf Bermuda grass, I think you have to do more work to the seashore paspalum. And the same thing goes for zoysia. You can get pretty good roll on zoysia greens, but you need to do a lot of work. And the to get the ball to roll good on Ultra Dwarf Bermuda grass, I don't think it's necessary to do as much work. Well, I not just think, I think I know because I've measured it enough times. And I mean, if somebody disagrees with me, please let me know and teach me. But can you tell me a little bit about what are the tricks to manage ultra dwarf Bermuda grass for tournaments in a climate like Hong Kong where you can have that quite cloudy weather?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's probably not as complicated as some might think. I mean, we do have very challenging weather, especially in the springtime here. Temperatures are still relatively low. The grass isn't growing. Um, we get a lot of fog, a lot of cloudy days, a lot of low light. Um, so that's probably our most challenging time. We do use a lot of fungicides. I'll be honest, we're fighting off algae, fighting off leaf spot, curvularia, microlaris, things like that. So just you know, we don't push them too hard, especially that time of year with nitrogen or anything like that. We just kind of try to protect the plant the best we can against disease. Um, I do a lot of kind of preconditioning, I guess you could say. We do a lot of light, frequent top dressing, a lot of venting. Um, Anywhere I think in the tropics, but particularly Hong Kong, it's real important I think to get air and oxygen down to the root zone. Um, and try to keep the roots as healthy as you can. So just basic fundamental, good cultural practices, good fungicide programs, um, things like that. Now, when we get into tournaments, whether it's big tournaments or even smaller member tournaments, I really do like the Tiff Eagle because I feel you can really kind of push it, um, dry it out, firm it up, roll. We do dry rolls and verticuts and stuff like that. So one reason I've always liked Ultra North Bermudas is that I do feel you can really kind of peak them out or really push them for the big events, and they seem to handle that and then bounce back rather quickly. I can't speak for Zoe. I mean, I've managed a lot of Zoes in my life, but I've never managed a Zoe at putting green, so I honestly can't speak to Zoe as a green surface. But um,
Have you ever putt? I mean, have you ever played a round of golf on a course with zoysia greens?
no, I have not. No, there
Well,
are. I did a little research before this because when I was doing all my work in Vietnam, there were maybe 40 or 50 courses, and none of them had zoysia greens at that time. But I called some of my colleagues, former colleagues, and I guess there are about 5 courses now in Vietnam that have zoysia greens put
hmm
in. So it does seem like it's coming along. Again, I don't really know how successful it is or how it's going to. It's kind of a newer thing to me, I guess.
yeah, it's quite interesting because zoysia greens are quite an old thing because what you see is the old classic courses have zoysia greens, and you have places like Wack Wack's East Course, which is zoysia greens. You have places like Manila Golf Club, which had zoysia greens until 2006, and then they did a renovation and put in Seashore Paspalum, and then that wasn't able to tolerate the shade that they have there. So from about 2013 or 2014, they started a program to rebuild a couple greens every year or resurface a couple greens every year with zoysia. So now they're back now at this point, they're now all the greens are back to zoysia. You have places like Royal Bangkok Sports Club right in the heart of Bangkok, which is zoysia greens. You have places like Royal Hua Hin, the oldest course in Thailand, which is going to be celebrating its 100 year anniversary this year or next year, I believe. That has zoysia greens. You got a number of classic courses in Southeast Asia that are zoysia, and it's quite successful. And yet, what happened through the 1990s, when I first came to Asia, it was in 1998. I was at Shanghai Links, and I was always wanted to be a huge Whitgang customer because they had all the products that I wanted to buy. Although we didn't always have the budget to buy everything that I requested. But that was in 1998, and at that time, a lot of courses in that were being built in Asia in the warm season areas were putting Bermuda grass on the greens, and that's when Tiff Eagle was coming in, and so the first Tiff Eagle courses in Asia, I think, were about 1998, and there was Tiff Eagle, and then eventually a little bit of Mini Verde, a little bit of Champion, and then Seashore Paspalum got really popular. I think Tony Taylor did a great job in the late 90s with a project at Thai Country Club in Bangkok and converted that to Seashore Paspalum, not on the greens. I think they still had Bermuda grass on the greens, but everywhere else was Seashore Paspalum. And then Amata Spring Country Club in Bangkok opened in about 2005 or 2006. They went ahead and put CIL 2000 on the greens. And that was such a high profile project that seems to have triggered between Thai Country Club and Amata Spring, a lot of courses put in Seashore Paspalum for a while. So a lot of those courses, those 30 or 40 courses in Vietnam that were built in the late 1990s and then 2000 to 2015 or something, they would have put in, a lot of them put in Seashore Paspalum. Some of them put Seashore Paspalum on the greens also. And then people have seen problems with that. So what's happening now, remember, prior to 1990, a lot of the courses were what I showed, tropical carpet grass and zoysia, and it was working just fine. People were putting in Bermuda. It didn't work so well because of the shade. Then they put in Seashore Paspalum, struggled for all the reasons that people struggle with Seashore Paspalum when you're irrigating it with clean water. Seashore Paspalum, it really is great when you have saline irrigation water, but just because it's a pretty grass, when you plant it where there's a lot of rainfall that doesn't have salt in it and your irrigation water doesn't have so much salt in it, the diseases are a lot worse. The weeds are a lot worse. The grass doesn't have nearly as dwarf and fine of a texture as you can get when you're irrigating with salty water. And it just can struggle. So then more recently, people are putting in zoysia again. So it's quite interesting, and it's fun that we get to observe this. And you've kind of been here for all of that. Well, I mean, both of us have been here for the later parts of that. So we've got a chance to see this with Bermuda grass and with Seashore Paspalum and with some of the newer zoysias.
Yeah, yeah, it's been fun watching kind of the evolution of the different grasses throughout Asia. And, one interesting aspect about the zoysia, which during my time in Vietnam, the topic certainly came up on many projects. And the one issue, everyone's always thinking the environmental conditions, playability, and things like that. But what seemed to be a hang up, at least during my time, was the speed of growing. People were always, concerned, about how fast can we open the. We have owners and stakeholders. They want to get the project done. They want to get it open fast, and there was concern. Like, is it going to take 3 months to grow in the greens? 4 months? Some people say 6 months. So I don't know. My question to you, because I don't have a lot of experience growing in zoysia greens, I guess, but how long would it take to grow in a zoysia green? That seems to be a bit.
I think that is a great question. I think from sprigs, if you plant sprigs, which is the way that ideally I would like to do it, if you have time, I think you'd have full coverage after 4 months. And I think that you could realistically say we're going to have a normal mowing height, and the grass may be a little bit lush and a little bit bumpy, but we could open after 6 months, no problem. That's what I think. Now, I'll tell you a story about how they do it in Japan, which used to be almost all zoysia greens, and now there's not. I mean, there's a lot more courses that are bank grass there now than zoysia. So zoysia is a bit of a unique thing in Japan, although there still are a lot of courses with zoysia, a few hundred probably. Well, it depends because they've got that unique two green system in Japan too. So if we think of the courses that have one bentgrass green and one zoysia green, perhaps the numbers are even higher. In Japan, it would be unheard of to sprig a zoysia green. It's just sodding is the way to go, because it in the colder temperatures of Japan, the numbers that I was giving were for a tropical type climate or for a American Southeast type of summer. And in fact, there's been some research at the University of Tennessee where Tyler Carr has been measuring the grow-in time at some different planting dates with zoysia, and basically he thinks you can get it grown in one summer in the American Southeast if you plant it at the right time. But there's a very critical planting window, and you're still looking at basically an entire summer. You're looking at planting it in like late May, and then growing it in June, July, August, September. So again, like 4 months. And I've seen those. I mean, it's full coverage. But I have pretty high standards for what I want the putting surface to be. So I think I don't want to open after 4 months. I might open after 6 months. So, yeah, I mean, that. Anyway, one more little story, and then I think this is about long enough for this episode, but I would love to have you back to talk about zoysia greens specifically. But just one quick story. One of the really famous courses in Japan that has zoysia greens is Naruo Golf Club, Naruo, and that is in Osaka, or very near Osaka, in the Kansai region of Japan. And I believe, if I remember correctly, they are redoing their greens this year. And if I remember correctly, they're doing the greens resurfacing project with sod, and I believe the sod was laid in February or March, and they're gonna open in the autumn. So they're doing an entire year just to let the sod grow in, and that's how it's typically done in Japan. I've got another interesting story about a course in Bangkok that sodded their greens and opened immediately. But I think that this is, if we start talking about that now, we're going to end up going on and on. So if it's okay with you, Chris, we'll start wrapping up this particular episode, and if you'll join me again on the show, we could talk about zoysia greens specifically, which I am passionate about.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great, Micah. Yeah, I love talking grass. So anytime.
Well, cool, Chris. Thank you so much for joining me here on the ATC Double Cut. Again, there will be a direct link to that post that we discussed about trees, turf, and tropical tournament golf. Again, you can follow Chris on Twitter, which I recommend, at HKChase, CHASE, and learn more about him if you don't know him already. He's a pretty well-known superintendent, and we've had a chance to play golf together. We've met in Malaysia, in Thailand, in Hong Kong, so many places I can't remember. So it's great to have you on the show. Thanks a lot, Chris.
You beat me a few times in golf. That's
I
maybe I'll
like
get you
to.
back.
You'll get me someday. I think I've been lucky with the way that I've played on the times that we've had some matches. All
All
right.
right.
Th-
Thanks, Micah.
Thanks a lot, Chris. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me on the ATC Double Cut. That was really fun to talk with Chris, and we are passionate about these kind of grasses and the really interesting way that you have some challenges growing these grasses, but some interesting opportunities to work with unique grasses and unique ways of managing it in a tropical environment. Thanks for your interest. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. For ATC from Yantakao, Thailand, I'm Micah Woods.